So it was only a matter of time before I was going to read George MacDonald Fraser's Flashman. And man, I am happy I did. I don't know what took me so long to get to this book or this series. And I will say this, I will be reading probably the entire 12 book series over the course of my life because I really enjoyed it. It's fantastic. So that's a little preview. So here's the introduction. Hello, my name is Cody C. Engdahl. I am the author that you know. I am the author of 6 novels. All are available on Amazon. I am also the author of a novella. It's about 21,000 words, about a quarter to a fifth the size of one of my normal novels. It's a great story. It's a prequel. It's an immediate prequel to Rampage on the River, which is my first book, and or at least my first novel. And it's absolutely free. It's going to be free and exclusive to my email subscriber list. So if you go down into the description, there's a link down there that will tell you how to sign up for my list. I'm expecting to have that novella distributed to my list probably in about a month, maybe even sooner. It is written, and I have gone through all of my editing paces with it. It is in the hands of my editor in chief, Laura, who is also my girlfriend. She has it now. She's going to spend about a week or so on it. And then once she comes back with her changes, I'll be making those changes. And then I'm going to send it to my mother for our one last look over. I'll probably go over it one more time myself, and then we'll have it out. So no promises. But right now, I could have it out if everybody gets it back to me quickly. I could have it out. Well, let's just say early August. Meaning, once I release a book, or in this case, an ebook, a novella, I give myself about a month before I start writing the next project, and that is going to be Black James. I've already started my research, and I've done quite a bit of outlining on that. So I don't know how long that book is going to take. I'm going to give myself I believe I never want more than 2 years to go by between a release, and I'm considering the novella a release unto itself. So I'm hoping within 2 years of the Underground Railroad Ball, which is the novella that's about to come out, that Black James will be coming out, and then we'll see what happens after that. I think there's going to be. Uh, I have planned 4 more uh, novels that are part of the series, and we'll see where we are, and then I have a bunch of other ideas that I might get to. So anyway, let's get to this. So this is let's put this on the stage here. Uh, this is Flashman by George MacDonald Fraser. And you know what? Without any more preamble, I'm just going to go ahead and read this to you, and then I will explain a little bit about. Well, we'll just go into more depth about it. All right. And if I can get this to scroll, okay, good. Review of Flashman by George MacDonald Fraser. Flashman pulls no punches. It's not for the faint of heart. By his own admission, Harry Flashman, the main character in first-person narration, is a liar, a cheat, a scoundrel, a bully, a coward, and a rapist. And if you don't take him at his word, he certainly demonstrates this in his deeds throughout the story. You can add racist and imperialist to the list as well, which may also scare off many of the overly sensitive. But Flashman is not a hero and never presented as such. Even the character in his narration will tell you that. Rather, this is meant to be the memoir or perhaps confession of an octogenarian who no longer worries about the consequences of his deeds or the opinions of the people he'll soon leave behind. What the reader gets is a riveting story of a deliciously scandalous cad that um, that'll have you snickering in delight than hoping no one caught you laughing. Flashman is a parody, and all good parodies are a mirror to society, to the society they reflect. And certainly, Flashman bears all the bullheaded hypocrisy of the Victorian age and the British Empire. Oh, what fun! Coffee breaker. The concept of the novel is brilliant. Flashman first appeared in the 1857 novel Tom Brown's School Days by Thomas Hughes. In it, he's a bully at Rugby School who is eventually expelled for drunkenness. Author George MacDonald Fraser then picked up the character and published this novel, Flashman, in 1969. Fraser went on to write 11 more in the series using the found manuscript trope, in which he pretends to have found Flashman's memoir, which he claims was written somewhere between 1900 and 1905. Hugh got it wrong, are the first words that we hear from Flashman. He goes on to admit that he had been kicked out of rugby for drunkenness, but he didn't mix drinking gin with beer, which he knew better to do even at 17. The rest of the novel is what he does after his expulsion, which is joining the East India Company army and fighting in the First Anglo-Afghan War. Like all good historical fiction, the novel has a cast of historical characters and stays true to real history, making Flashman a participant and witness to events like the disastrous retreat from Kabul, the last stand at Gandamak, and the siege of Jalalabad. The book also has a profound understanding of human nature, especially our dark side, which we can see in the words and action of Flashman, perhaps in our own reflection in the mirror. Flashman is a witty, swashbuckling adventure full of thrills, laughs, and historical accuracy. I'm definitely in for more. Check it out here, and I added to my review a um, a preview of it that you can read the first. I think probably the first. I think the reviews are usually 10% of the novel, so you can get a good idea of what it's like. And then you can preview my latest novel here, the French Fiasco, which came out in April. So there you have it. That's my review of the of Flashman. I gotta say that this is one of those novels, or this is one of those series that is well known and well regarded. From my own perspective, and I don't know how true it is. From my own anecdotal perspective, I had never heard of it. I think the first time I ever knew of a historical fiction series was Patrick O'Brien's Jack Aubrey series, which I think I first saw when I was like 12 at a bookstore and wanted to get one. But instead of buying one of those novels, I bought my 15-year-old cat's got the zoomies right now, which is really fun to see. Um, but I wanted one. I ended up getting ElfQuest graphic novels, which, by the way, I will say I'm still to this day a big fan of Wendy Peary and her ElfQuest, which is maybe one day we'll talk about that. But but the ones that I think that anybody in this genre knows about and maybe has read and tries to emulate are, first of all, Bernard Cornwell is like the living pope of historical fiction. His Sharp series is really the impetus for so many of us writers. So many writers that I've heard, like for example on Rock Paper Swords, including the host, are big Bernard Cornwell fans, and so am I. And I consider him one of the reasons why I started writing. There's Patrick O'Brien's Napoleonic naval series, and then about 10 years older than him is C.S. Forester's Horatio Hornblower, which is once again Napoleonic. I'm trying to think if there are any other iconic, and please forgive me if I'm missing them. In fact, if I am missing one, put it down in the comments there. That'll be good interaction for me. Uh, um, but I think the Flashman series is one that I learned about later, but people hold in high regard. It's a very interesting um, it's a very interesting series in that how it's handled and the protagonist in it. And now that I've read Flashman, I can kind of see some of the writers that I have read and I'm currently reading how their series is very much influenced by Flashman. And Paul Collard, I wonder if he's in any relation now that I think about it, because there's Paul Fraser Collard, and there is George MacDonald Fraser. I wonder if that Fraser, there's any connection. But Paul Collar's got a series that I really like. I read the first and last of that series. I think there's 11 in it. That's the Lark. Oh, I can't remember the main character's name, but in that one, it's in third person. But what's interesting is the character is an imposter, and it's kind of like the talented Mr. Ripley. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Ripley books, but Ripley is an imposter, and so he in different novels he pretends to be someone else to get into places that he should be. So Paul Collard's series is about a character of uh, loose scruples who gets his way in things using false pretenses. And then there's the John Drake series. The his main character is Fletcher. I can't remember Fletcher's first name. And I have the first 7 of those in a box set, and I'm reading the third novel. And he's kind of a rogue too. And what's interesting about that series that is much like the Flashman series is it's using that trope of the found. I had to look up what is the trope. It's called found manuscript. And the idea behind it is that the author, it's all fiction, it's all bullshit. But the author in the beginning of the book claims that they found this manuscript, this old dusty manuscript stored in an attic somewhere, and is merely like editing it and putting it out as the memoir of this person. And I thought it was really novel when I saw John Drake do it, and then I realized that this is something that is been around for a very long time. In fact, I realize now there is some World War II books that are from the German perspective, and is the name of the writer is Wolfgang Faust, which I think is a known a pen name, and he claims to be having been a German tank commander on the Eastern Front, and these are his memoirs. A lot of people challenge the validity of that. I don't know if it's ever been proven one way or the other, because the novels were written shortly after the war, like in 46 and 47, I think. By the way, they're fantastic. Wolfgang Faust, the first one's called, I think it's Tiger Tracks and the Last Panzer. But it's all about the collapse of the German front in Russia and the Soviet Union, and their retreat back to Berlin, and just the absolute chaos. And it is one of the most, and both those novels are the most intense, holy shit books I've ever read in my life. And they're presented as a memoir. So I don't know, make of it what you want. So I began to realize that, okay, this isn't anything new. This has been around for a while. And I think it's been around, it might even be a lot more popular in the 19th century. So it might be an old trope. But it's interesting, and it's fun to see it play out. So the idea behind it was that was it John Hughes wrote the Tom Brown School Days, which is a semi autobiographical novel in which he it's about a young man who goes to rugby, which is a private school in Britain, and that novel is about his experience going to that school. And what's interesting about that is that that in itself is a trope that was kicked off by um, Tom Brown's School Days. And here's what. Okay, so I forgot what the trope is called because all these tropes have like a name that people are known by. But the trope they call it is something along the lines of like the school trope or the school days trope, in which the story is about someone going to an academy and then what their adventure at this academy is. And there's been multiple examples of this trope since Tom Brown's School Days. And one of them is very famous today and very popular. And I'll see if you can guess this. Okay. So, if you didn't know, there is a private school in England called Rugby. That's the name of the school. I think it's named after somebody. I think Rugby is a surname. And so, in this school is a sport that they play, um, a novel sport that would be new to the reader. Just so you know, like rugby, football, soccer, Aussie rule football, Canadian football, all of these are derivatives of the same sport that some people say go all the way back to the Roman Empire. And so, if you're guessing rugby, you're right. So the rugby, the game that we know as rugby, was developed in the 19th century at the rugby private school in England, and that's why it's called rugby because rugby. I think it's probably rugby rules football. Okay, so the trope is a kid goes to a school and learns a novel game and becomes good at it while he's going to that school. What does that remind you of? Well, the answer is, you ready? Harry Potter. In fact, when you look up the trope and again Wikipedia, Harry Potter is one of the examples of this trope, and so and that a lot of the Harry Potter is structured at in the same way as Tom Brown's School Days. Young man goes to an academy and learns a new sport. And Harry Potter's version is Quidditch. It's been a while since I read it. And which is a ridiculous sport written by someone who has no idea how sports work. Because I remember watching that movie or reading the. I did both. I read the book and I watched the movie, and it made no sense to me because it's like everybody else. There seems to be two games being played. Everybody else is playing one game in which, and I can't even remember how the game works because it doesn't matter. Because while they're all doing that and doing low scoring, like some kind of low scoring play, a game, but then each team has one person who chases around the Quidditch, and whoever gets it automatically wins the game. So what's the point of all the other stuff going on if all that matters is whoever catches the thing wins the game? I always thought that was stupid, and but who am I to know? I'm not a huge sports fan, and I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan either. Not to have anything against it, it's just not for me. So, anyway, the book was written in '57, in which Harry Flashman is a student, and he's a bully. He picks on Tom Brown. And then Flashman gets kicked out for drunkenness. And that was it. That came out in 1857. It was very popular. In fact, I read that it was taught in English classes in Japan, like in the late 18th century, or no, I'm sorry, late 19th century, early 20th century. It was required reading for Japanese students learning English, reading that book. So it would have been really well known. And so Harry, I'm sorry, Harry Flashman is a character in that. So what George MacDonald Fraser did was take that character who, I think the way copyright works is after like a certain amount of years, I think it's like 80 or 90 years, things fall into public domain. Like for example, in um, Mexico, My Love, Zorro is not in that book, but there are some allusions and references that are very subtle to Zorro in that book and who his descendants are. So if you ever read that, I think I've had very few people actually say, "Hey, is so and so's grandfather Zorro?" Um, I'm like, "Yeah." And I always wonder, are people seeing the hints there, or do they not care or know enough about Zorro to realize that the character that I'm, he never makes an appearance because he's long dead in the story, but he's somebody's grandfather and he gets referenced quite a bit. And there's so much of the references are, how he acted effeminate, but then would wear a mask and do brave and dashing things. So anyway, enough of that. So basically, it's kind of like if I were to write, well, Zorro books, for example, if I wanted to, there's a company out there that thinks they own the copyright to Zorro. They don't. They own the copyright to like a logo. The Zorro is public domain, so anybody could write a Zorro book right now. I know there've been comic books written. Same thing with like Robin Hood. I have two friends that are successful authors that both have their own Robin Hood series. King Arthur. If I want to write a King Arthur book, I can write King Arthur. All sorts of these literary Sherlock Holmes. Anybody can write a Sherlock Holmes book now. Nobody owns the character. So the same thing with Flashman. In fact, if I wanted to, I could write my own Flashman book. So what George did was take this character and the idea is, well, what happens to this bully after he leaves the school? And so this series is what happens to him. And I thought that was very interesting. And the other thing I thought was interesting is that so often, and I feel like I bucked the trend because so often in a lot of these series, including like Bernard Cornwell, who's like very famous and very highly regarded, the main character is very brave, very strong. He's the best fighter. He's very smart. If he were a woman, we would be calling him a Mary Sue. Uh, I have a name for characters like that in film and literature. I call them biggest dickuses after the life of Brian, if you don't know the reference. But, and I've read, authors that are far more successful than me, that I hold in high esteem, but their main character is, you know, the biggest, the baddest, the toughest, the smartest, the best ever. And um, and so it's fine, and there are some challenges, but it seems sometimes a character like that can seem kind of flat. Carl, my main character in most of my books, he's kind of cowardly. He gets he's not the best. He has some skill, but he gets beat a lot, and he's scared a lot, and he also would rather take the easy way out a lot. And I just felt like a character like that was more like me. Well, first of all, putting yourself in your own book is a hack move. I am not any of my characters, but I just felt like making Carl kind of cowardly and kind of um what's the word, an kind of an idler who gets sucked into things he doesn't want to do. I felt made him feel more grounded and maybe even um relatable to readers. Flashman is a whole other level of that because Flashman is an awful human being, and he admits it, and it's great because he's it's in first person, and usually I'm not a fan of first person narratives, but this is done so well. The voice of Flashman is so well. Because he's so deviant and so bad and awful, it's immensely entertaining to hear him tell out his stories and give his reasonings for what he does. And he does awful things. You're never supposed to. I mean, he's not a hero, although sometimes you find yourself rooting for him because he's the main protagonist, but he's awful. And one of the things, and it happens twice. A little spoiler warning. I won't give you specifics, but the one thing that I noticed that happened twice in the book that is just fucking hysterical is at some point, uh, Flashman will be separated from the others, and he'll be with a character who is heroic, who is a good fighter and strong, and the chips will be on the table, and Flashman is an utter coward. And the other character finally calls him out because he's been hiding the fact that he's a coward from people, and will call him a coward and call him out on it and force him to have to help and fight. And what happens is the heroic character dies in the fight. Flashman survives mostly through by two things: his own cowardice and the heroic person saving him, so that when the other people show up and the real hero is dead, and and so are all the bad guys, and Flashman is standing there with a bloody sword or a bloody lance, the assumption is that Flashman is the hero and he's the one who killed everybody. And of course, Flashman, being the person he is, allows them to believe that. And then you're just laughing. You're like, you cannot believe it. And he's being heralded as a hero. And he's a coward and a liar. And that's the kind of things that happen throughout the book. He's a womanizer, sometimes by force. And I think that can be very hard for people to understand, or to it'll be hard for some people to read, but it's not done in a way that makes you think like, oh, that's something someone should do. It's because he's awful and he does awful things, and there are consequences for it. He is there's an attempted rape in the beginning, or towards the beginning, like the first act of it. He pays a price for that for sure. And that comes back around to haunt him quite a bit. And then he actually commits one, and that becomes a motivation for his antagonists. And that's a plural there. And it's never presented as a good thing. And then, he's incredibly racist. Oh, excuse me. I'm recovering from tongue cancer, and my tongue is swollen, so it's hard for me to talk. And sometimes I bite it because it's too big for my mouth. He's extremely racist too. His view of the Afghans and the natives there, but he's not outside the viewpoints that are common to his time and his place. The British Empire was very colonial and very racist, especially in their conquest of South Asia, which would be modern day India, Bengali, Afghanistan, Pakistan. And so his view of people is terrible. But the author doesn't treat those people terrible. It's just that Flashman and his fellow, not all of them, but most of his fellow Brits have that view of those people. And so when you're reading it, like George MacDonald Fraser is not framing this as how you should be. He's framing it almost as a parody. Like, because like I said, it's a mirror. Not only is it a mirror to the time that it takes place and the problems of that time with imperialism and racism and misogyny and chauvinism and all that kind of stuff, but also in our own dark, you know, God, I can't remember. And write it down in the comments if you know I'm talking about. One of the it might be Jung, it might be I don't think it's Freud. One of those 19th century psychology philosophers talk about the shadow self, and there is your the Japanese talk about the three faces. There's the face you show the public. There's the face you only show your close friends and family, and then there's the face that you don't show anybody, and that is the shadow self. In fact, Billy Joel has even got a song about the shadow, and the shadow self is those all of those dark feelings and impulses that you have. And it's really interesting because some people are completely unaware of their shadow self, and some people are. And the popular philosophy about the shadow self is that it's not healthy to deny your shadow, to deny this. It's better to look at your shadow self directly, see the problems with it, and try to make adjustments. Try to understand why you have the dark feelings that you do. What happens to a lot of people is uh, um, there are some people that completely give into their shadow self and say, "Who cares?" and wear their shadow self on their forward face and just become, what society considers evil people. Then there are others that deny their shadow and push it away, but it won't be denied. It just goes into the shadows and it manifests itself in your subconscious and hides itself in your motivations for the things that you do. And that's what we call hypocrisy. And that's the people that pretend to be good people and show the outer world. A lot of politicians are this way. A and a lot of celebrities too. A very likable person on the outside, but someone who is secretly rotten on the inside. And I think that's someone who is denying their shadow. But the healthy thing to do is to look at your shadow. Look at the things that are deep inside you, your hatreds, the things and the people that you hate, and the dark motivations you have, and try to understand them, and try to work. I think someone once called it shadow work. Um, and so I think that Flashman is not supposed to be someone that you want to emulate. He's never presented that way. He is your shadow. He is the worst of human impulse and human motivation. So I think, and not only that, God, I wonder if I have it still. This one I got from the library. I have to work on my pronunciation because of the cancer thing. Oh, my computer is so slow. Let me see if I can pull it up. There were parts of it that I marked because there was just profound understanding of human nature that I just thought there were bits in it that I thought were just stunning that um, I set aside because George MacDonald Fraser understands people, understands human nature, and this is never going to pull up. While I'm streaming, my computer gets really slow, so it's hard for me to do things on the fly um, because it wants to take forever. But there were so many times where I was reading, it's in the voice of Flashman, who, I mean, I guess one of the things that I enjoyed about it is as bad as Flashman is, he's very candid in it and very quick to very open about his cowardice and his dark feelings and his, his motivations and he will wow, I hope it's not black on your end. I might am I no longer there? I am. Okay. Yeah, I can't get this to load while I'm streaming, but there are some very in-depth quotes in there that I thought were very interesting. Um, Things about like people lying and trying to convince themselves more than convincing others. That was a big one. And you see that a lot. Have you ever noticed if somebody's lying, they'll be more passionate? Like lies are passionate, right? And so somebody who, I mean, this isn't always true, but sometimes if somebody is accused of something and they're trying to lie that they didn't do it, they'll 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 get really dramatic and they'll overreact. And and people who are truly innocent says, "Yeah, no, I didn't do that," and because they didn't do it and they believe they didn't do it, um, uh, they're not lying, and so they don't feel like have to. Um, they don't feel like they have to convince anybody. But someone who's lying might really get dramatic and angry and feign indignation. And Fraser, uh, through the voice of Flashman, God, this is taking wow, this is still loading. Um, will say that these people that do that are mostly trying to. Here we go. Flashman. Let's see if it'll let me get into my notes now. Are mostly trying to convince themselves. Yeah, I should have had this ready. Uh, I'll start doing that too because I do make notes as I read. Um, on my Kindle, there's a way of doing that, and I think some of my notes, not all my notes make it into the review, but sometimes taking the notes is just all right. I'm not even gonna bother this, but that was a good example there. Um, this is gonna take forever to load, so we'll just let it go. So anyway, that's my review of Flashman. I will be reading the next one. I, not anytime soon. I put it at the bottom of my list. I've decided that I'm going to stick to my queue. I have a whole list of novels I want to read. The things that when I buy a whole like a what do you call it a box set, I try to break it up. Like I read one of the novels, then I read something else, and then I read the next one, then something else. So I'm not reading all seven in the rows. And I'm doing that with two box sets right now. I'm reading John Drake's Fletcher, and uh, that's 7 novels. I'm reading the third one now, and I'm also reading Serena Doherty's uh, Wombi School for Wood Witches. That's 5 novels. I mean, it's like 20, but I have the first 5 box set. So I'm going to read one of John Drake's, then something else, then one of Dory's, then something else, and then one of John Drake. So I'm not just going back and forth between the two, and I'm not just reading one series all in a row. I've decided to put the next Flashman book at the bottom of my list. Now I've read 19 novels this year, so I'm getting through the list quite faster than before. It used to take me a little over a month to read a novel. Now I'm reading them in under 2 weeks. Sometimes I read them in a week. So right now I'm reading Fletcher and the Mutineers. Here, I'll put this down. Let me take this down to go full screen. Wow, my computer is really slow. It doesn't like doing all this stuff. And for all I know, I don't even see the numbers going by, so I don't even know if I'm live anymore. I'm going to pretend that I am, and then we'll see what happens. Let's see if I can go full screen here. Anyway, I'm reading book 3. Wow, this thing is the numbers going, so I don't know if I'm still live or not, but I'm going to pretend that I am, and we'll see what happens. So I'm reading book 3 of the Fletcher series. It's called the Fletcher and the Mutineers. It's good. I've read 2 of his novels so far. I started the third one, and I'm enjoying it. Then after that, I'm not. Oh, I think I'm going to read Pinson Wu's third book about the War of the Three Kingdoms. I think that's next. As far as me as a writer, what we talked about early on, yeah, there we go. The numbers are caught up. I will be putting out the Underground Railroad ball soon. So one thing is about that there's not going to be any place that someone can leave stars or leave or a review. So I would like to know directly. If you get it from me, write me back. Let me know what you think about it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Why not? I got a review today. This reviewer had reviewed The Perils of Perryville and gave it 5 stars. And then they read, and I was like, great. And that this person said great series and all that. And then so now they posted a review for Blood for Blood at Nashville. They gave it 3 stars. And they said that the depiction of the racism in the South during the Civil War wasn't bad enough. That I didn't make the racism. And I mean, that's fine. That's that person's opinion. I mean, as far as I'm like, fuck, there's like a massacre and people constantly being called the N-word throughout the book. So what more do you want? But that's fine. You're gonna get good and you're gonna get bad ones. And if you're an author, just know that. And it's still 3 stars. I mean, I'll take 3 stars over 2, right? And 1. And at least I find that most people that give you 1 or 2 stars don't give you a reason why. I think I only have 1 2-star review that actually gave a reason why they gave me 2 stars. And that one I didn't think was fair either, but I'm biased, right? Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm doing fine. I'm still learning how to eat. I'm recovering from my my cancer. I still am using a feeding tube to take in my nutrition and just working a little bit, eating soft foods, like noodles and soups and yogurts, and trying to work my way up to solids and getting back to where I was. My tongue is still feels like it's burned a lot. I don't have a lot of sense of taste, but I'm coming along. So anyway, that's it. I don't have any public appearances anytime soon. I'm still Paul and I, Paul's the banjo player I play with. I'm a fiddler, if you didn't know. We're still rehearsing. We don't have anything until the fall, but we're kind of just woodshedding right now. And we talked about when the weather. Now I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and the weather here in the summer is awful. Like it's just there's no being outside without being miserable. So we're thinking once the weather breaks in the fall, that we're going to try to do some busking. So if I have a date or a place, I'll let you know. And that's it. If you're a writer, keep writing. If you're a reader, keep reading, and please, by all means, give people reviews. We get reviews if you'd be so kind, not just for me, but anybody out there that you like. It really helps us in the algorithm to get the rating. So like a 5-star rating. I mean, if you think that me or the person that you're rating truly deserves 3, 4, 2, or 1 stars, I mean, that's fine. If you give someone a low rating, if you give someone like a 1 or a 2, I think you deserve to tell that person why. And you can do it anonymously. But if you're going to go on Facebook, I'm sorry, not Facebook, if you're going to go on Amazon or Goodreads and you're going to give someone 1 star or 2 stars, which is a bad review, a bad rating, let them know. Tell them why you didn't like it. Say, I didn't like this because blah, 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 blah. And maybe they may take that to heart and keep that. Now, I'll give you a good example. I had a guy, he gave me 3 stars, 3 out of 5, which is okay, a passing grade. But he didn't like my use of writing out sound effects, like boom. And so I stopped doing it, or at least I dialed it back quite a bit because of that review. And he wrote down 2 of my books that he didn't like that. And I heard some other people complain, not about me, but in other people. So I thought, okay, well, if this is something that people don't like, it's not really that important to me. So I can move on and not do that. So let us know if you have to give us a low rate, let us know why. And then if you give us a good one, it'd be great if you could say why as well.